Mid-century modernism is more than just iconic buildings. It's about the visionaries who dedicate their lives to preserving its legacy. Welcome to the PS ModCom Lifetime Achievement Series, where we celebrate the extraordinary individuals shaping the future of modernism. In this episode, we honor Janice Lyle, a trailblazer in preservation whose transformative work has redefined how we experience these architectural treasures.
I have been in the desert since 1982, so I have a long history here in the desert, but I was born and raised in the Los Angeles area. I spent 8 years in Santa Barbara for graduate school. I have a master's degree and a PhD from UC Santa Barbara.
With a PhD in art history, specializing in British and American art, Janice's academic background became the foundation for her impactful work in preservation. Her move to the desert marked the start of a professional journey deeply rooted in cultural leadership, beginning with her work at one of Palm Springs' most iconic institutions, the Palm Springs Desert Museum.
The Palm Springs Desert Museum began in 1938, and it was at that time a natural science museum. When I came in 1984 and started working there, it was a multidisciplinary museum. So it was art, natural science, and performing arts. What happened over the next 20 years was that there was a lot of change in the community and at the museum itself. And the decision was made to be an art museum. And it has proven to be wonderfully successful because the art community and the architecture community has supported the museum in such a significant way.
Under Janice's leadership, the museum's transition into an art-focused institution gained momentum. Facing the challenge of securing funding for the expansion, she worked closely with its original architect, E. Stewart Williams, who came out of retirement at 85 to design the third floor.
I became director of the museum in 1994, and the Steve Chase gift of the new collection and seed money for a third floor happened just before I became director. It was our challenge to raise enough money to build this third floor. And Stu Williams came out of retirement at age 85 to design what that third floor would look like. He really cared about the use of his building by the public for its purpose of, providing enjoyment, entertainment, education, a passionate way of connecting with art.
Under Janice's leadership, the museum embraced its identity as a world-class art institution. While her work with the museum was transformative, a personal opportunity came her way that would allow her to live inside a masterpiece of modernist architecture, Albert Frey's Frey House 2.
I was the museum director when Albert Frey passed away, when the house was bequeathed to the museum. That would have been in 1998. At that time, the museum wasn't sure what it should do with the house. And Albert had said in his will, the house must be made available by appointment for architects and architectural students. After about 6 years or so, the house was looking really forlorn. My husband and I volunteered. It was a really hard thing to do, to be caretakers. And we said, we'll go and live there and see what happens if the house is lived in.
Janice and her husband moved into Frey House 2, immersing themselves fully in Albert Frey's philosophy of blending architecture with nature. What began as a temporary plan turned into 15 months of living in a space that redefined their perspective on modernism.
It was an extraordinary chance to understand how Albert Frey constructed a space that was at one with nature. And, I experienced it daily as I looked out those windows and saw the rocks and the plants on the mountain and looked down at the city and enjoyed the silence of it. So it changed the way I view living going forward.
Frey House 2 offered Janice a rare glimpse into Albert Frey's philosophy of minimalism and harmony with nature. This unique experience further informed her appreciation for preservation. But it was at Sunnylands where Janice took on a project with global significance.
So in 2008, I left the museum after 23 years, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do next. And the opportunity to come to Sunnylands and manage the transition from the residence that the Annenbergs lived in to a public institution came to me. There was already an ongoing effort to develop a visitor center, and Fred Fisher had designed the center, and it was beginning construction, but they didn't know how they were going to run it as a museum. So my job was to come in and help them out to figure out how could this visitor center really serve the community. So that took about 2 years, and the renovation of the house was largely driven by the need to accommodate public access.
After the 2-year renovation, the next challenge was finding ways to engage the community and spark interest in Sunnylands. What followed was the creation of programs that would educate, inspire, and make a lasting difference, starting with a focus on local students.
No one really knew how many people were going to come to Sunnylands, what was really going to be their interest. We knew we would do tours of the house, but we were experimenting with what kinds of programming would connect with our community. We created a program that connected with the local colleges and drew students for the purpose of learning about architecture and art and golf courses and all the bits of the Annenberg story, and having a direct impact on the lives of approximately 10 to 15 college students every year. And so that program has launched a number of college students into all kinds of areas and has helped our visitors to see that history and art and nature are things that young people can be really passionate about.
As Sunnylands transitioned into a public institution, preserving its story became just as important as preserving its spaces. This led to a project that would share the essence of Sunnylands and the legacy of the Annenbergs in a unique and impactful way.
In 2015, the idea of publishing a book about Sunnylands was introduced, and a New York publisher, Vendome, expressed an interest in doing a book about Sunnylands. So I wrote it. Because I'd been working on Sunnylands for 8 years at that point, I knew what our story was, and that had taken a certain amount of time to figure out because we needed to go through archives and establish what the real history was versus much of what had been written about. And that book actually sold out in 2022. And so Vendome reprinted and expanded the book at that time. So there's a new edition that's available both here at Sunnylands in our store, but it's available in bookstores and in Amazon, etc.
Sunnylands became a beacon for diplomacy, education, and preservation, embodying the Annenbergs' vision of cultural exchange and innovation. This work reflects Janice's larger philosophy of why preservation matters.
If you can keep an object, a painting, a building that represents creativity of an individual, and you can somehow make that available to people so that it's valued as we change. We're all changing, our society changes, and yet there were amazing things that people created in their own time representing forward movement and new thinking. Preservation is not just about looking to the past. It's about looking, valuing, and using the best of the past as one goes in the future.
Every great story needs people who preserve its legacy, and Janice Lyle has shown us the incredible impact of preserving modernism for future generations. At PS ModCom, we believe everyone can play a role in keeping these stories alive. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.